Welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. And welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. I want to just go into a little flow with the team, aka my higher self and the quantum field that we all exist within. My last video, I kind of just talked a little bit about channeling and what it is from my perspective. Everything I share is always from my own perspective and my own experience. And so I shared a little bit about psychics. I talked a little bit about all of us being in oneness versus separation. So if you're interested in watching that, I invite you to go back and watch my previous video, and we'll kind of see what topics we want to cover today. So this is a seamless interaction as I drop in and signal to my higher self or ascension team, if that is what we choose to call this frequency of collective energies of expression, that we are all embedded, if you will, imbued, we are hued, we are colored, we are sounded into, if you will. And so how it is that we tune into these sounds is how we tune into these sounds. It is how we interpret these sounds. It is how we fine tune what it is that we hear, what it is that we are signaling, what it is that we are listening to. And through this is a filtration system. And sometimes that filter is fear. And we are calling the attention right now to that, which many are tuning into, listening to, feeding, and essentially molding their reality around that particular sound, which is fear. And fear has many different sounds, many different signatures. For many of us have different types of fears. We have all had different life experiences that have brought us into a different schematic, if you will, or a different blueprint. And that which we feel strongly about is different between each individual snowflake or imprint that we all each are, that we all are each, that we are each and individually, yet collectively imprinted into this hologram, if you will, of reality. For as we share within this frequency of the ocean or the sea, of many frequencies and sounds, we are being called to interpret these frequencies and sounds and create from a variance, if you will, of more creative sounds. And so let us stop and play with this for a moment. So what I'm being shown is we are in this picture, a piece of music, a sheet of music with a note written on it, okay? And that note is C sharp. And I'm not a musician, so just play with me here. And that is a sound that is written into a symphony of many other sounds that creates a frequency. And what holds that piece of music together is the piece of paper, are the lines that show us potentially the depth of the sound, how long to hold it, how high or low it goes, etc., etc. And those lines, is what I'm being shown on that piece of paper, are essentially the graph or the medium in which the orchestra is embedded into, that we then read and interpret. And then we use our bodies through an instrument, let's say a flute or a guitar or a trombone or whatever it might be, to essentially play that sound, play that frequency, play that musical scale, if you will. So what they're trying to show me is that we are all snowflakes in this musical scale of sound, and we are each creating many different, it's like we are all, I'm being shown snow. I keep being shown snowflakes. And essentially what I'm being shown is if we had snowflakes that all looked the same, it would be a very stark landscape in comparison. to to what we have now with this beautiful diversity in musical notes, musical scales. And not everything is going to play within the same musical sheet. So if you open a book of music, and let's say it's Mozart, created all of these symphonies, they're each individually expressed, and then they're named a symphony. I don't know why I'm being shown this, but they're just asking me to really like play with this. Like, what is sound? What is music? How does it come about? Where do we get it? How do we create it? What does it look like when we create it? And there's a lot that goes into it. But the simplicity is it's coming from the field. Mozart pulled that symphony out of the field because he could hear it. He could sense it. He could play it. And then we perpetuate that by picking up our own instruments and following his writing. And what they're showing me is that we are all writing that symphony in our own way, and let's call that symphony reality. So that comes through in an orchestration of activities, of sound, of feelings, of emotions. And what they're just trying to share is that because of this, what's happening is one of the biggest sounds that's being, I'm hearing the word converted. So, but it's fear. So a lot of people are playing and there's this fear that has the orchestra confused, is what they're saying. So I'll kind of go back into flow a little bit with that. And so we invite you to scale back on listening to the majority of the few that act as if they are the authority. I'm hearing the authority and the view, the higher view of reality, for it is full of distortions. And as these distortions are interlaced and interwoven together, they create a false sense of representation or a false representation of sense. And we could play with that either way. A false sense of what reality looks like and how we should obey or listen. I'm being called to play with the word obey. I love it. So the etymology of the word obey comes from in the direction of, and I can't remember exactly what I just said, but hear, to listen, to hear, right? So we hear something, and when you hear something, it doesn't necessarily mean you're listening, right? Just because we hear something doesn't mean we're really truly listening. But I'm being shown that it comes from Latin in the direction of hear. So basically, what I'm being shown, the interpretation of that is we're being called, look over here. This is all a play on words. Look over here and listen. So it's a direct play on words, in the direction of. And so we're being, our energy and what we're tuning into is pulling us into a reality of false energy. And how can energy be false? I'm kind of asking this as I go. It's a facade, is what I'm hearing. And it's not to say that the people who are projecting these mistruths don't believe in their own projections. They believe in their own symphony. A lot of times they believe what it is that they are speaking of because they know not what they are speaking of. Like there's a play on words with this. I'm also being shown, obviously, to obey in Old French was to do one's duty, be obedient. But I'm hearing pay attention to or give ear. So this has all to do with listening. And so when we obey, we're turning our attention and our direction to that. And then we're hearing that sound that we're turning our direction to. So the guides are kind of just showing that that sound is a false representation of a symphony that is only a piece of the entirety of reality. And it also has to do with our own projection of our own fears back onto that symphony and our perspective of what we're listening to. So there's a lot of plays on words on this. So I'm just going to keep going here. Losing my earpiece. Playing with your hair, Carrie. I didn't feel like doing anything with it. All right. And so as we step away from the role and the rules of obedience from one perspective, we no longer sit with certain things that we used to. Certain things no longer sit within us or sit with us in the same way. We begin to look at things in a different way or from a different perspective, or we look at things and look away from other things that may have held our attention longer. And I'm actually hearing attention deficit disorder. So there's something about like there's something bigger with this I'll have to come back and play with. And so many of us are recognizing this, and yet there are a large amount of people who are not recognizing that they are being controlled, one might say, by the pure essence of fear. And this fear has been entrained within us for a very long time, we might venture to say, for it has kept us in line. It has kept us paying attention to and listening to certain things and prioritizing those things as of the most import. So we find ourselves agreeing with certain things that seem important, for they are part of what have captivated us. I'm hearing stories and so on. They have captivated us for so long that without them, we are not exactly sure what we should focus on. And so there are many who have been focusing for a long time on, I'm just seeing, I don't want to say they're not important, because if somebody is in that business, it's important to them. But is it really that important to pay attention to what the hottest thing in fashion is? I'm using being shown that as an example. I'm being shown like on the catwalk, yeah. Anyways, I'm being shown like, look over here, look at how good we look on the runway. But I'm being shown it's like that can be fun to play with and it can be fun to dress up. And if that's your industry, of course, it's going to captivate and pull you into that. And it might be something that you love. But again, if that is something that is no longer relevant for the expansion of mankind, then why are we focusing our attention on that? Why do we care what the top celebrities are doing or who won the biggest award? There's something really big about this that they're trying to get to draw our awareness to. And this has to do with, I'm being shown the pedestal. I'm being shown people standing in front of a pedestal and making speeches, and us kind of looking up to certain people. And even as those, I'm hearing, as the world falls down, like even as a lot of those people fall off their pedestals, we still can't stop looking because we're so enthralled by it. So what they're saying is, don't be afraid to look, yet don't be afraid to look away also, and to go back and look within to see what can we be doing and creating in this now moment, rather than feeding our awareness and attention to what has already been created. So there's something very big about us they've said this a lot, us creating the future now. And this requires us to step out of self-doubt. It requires us to allow ourselves to feed that flame of creativity. It requires us to seek a sense of security with our own creations and to feel our own expansion from within. So we may discern truth from untruth or mistruth, or we may see what we missed the first time around in truth, or we may recognize that we have been perpetuating a lie. And in doing this, we find that we are, oh boy, squirrel. I'm just being shown that some of us have continued to say certain things that aren't necessarily true because we thought they were. And in truth, now we're finding out, oh, wait, maybe that wasn't accurate. But what I'm being shown is it's okay. Like even getting out of fear about that. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to, step on somebody's toes. All of those are examples of fear. So we're being called to ask ourselves, what are we afraid of? What is it that we are listening to that is perpetuating a sense of either false security or a sense of false idolization? I'm hearing false idols. What is it that we, and why are we doing that? Because it's a distraction from our own creative ventures. And I'm keep being shown us coming together in collaboration, because there has been this sense of, look over here, I know more than you do, or look over here, this person is a guru. I'm being playing with the poetic form here. We are going to make a statement, therefore we are the statement. So there is this fine line between collaboration and I'm being shown working together in a sense of unity, when in actuality we're working in a sense of uniformity, and we're conforming to an idealism that was put into play or put into motion in a time, I'm hearing long, long ago, in a chapter that is waiting to be dissolved. And instead, we are perpetuating it in some cases because it's easier for us to carry on something that we feel comfortable carrying. And that can be, I'm hearing the weight of the world. Boy, there's so many layers here, you guys. As I'm saying all of this in flow, I'm just seeing these layers upon layers upon layers that we're essentially kind of unraveling. And it's a lot, but it's nothing that we aren't able to handle when we step forward from a place of, again, compassion, coherence, stability, and even vulnerability, being that inner child. You know, being unsure is okay, but we're really being invited to encourage one another to just feel a greater sense of expansion, and quit limiting what that has to look like for each individual person. That's one of the bigger messages that's coming through, because there's almost a sense, what I'm feeling in the collective is there is a sense of, again, back to, I don't want to step on this person's toes. Well, I don't really believe in that, but I'm going to continue to support that because I feel like I should, or I've already committed, therefore I need to follow through. And I'm being shown that's honorable, but we're being called to honor ourselves first, because what some of us are finding are the things that we believed in, that we felt like we needed to stand up for, are no longer true. And they might have been true for us at one point. They might have been inspiring to us at one point, and that inspiration gave us the motivation to accomplish something in our lives. So they're pointing out, what I'm seeing is, it's not a bad thing. So again, been there, done that. Maybe it was not necessarily what I thought it was, but here I am now. I recognize it wasn't what I thought it was. What should I focus on maybe instead that is more in alignment with who I am now, what I am ready for now? And what are some things that it's okay if I say goodbye to these things because they no longer hold the same value or definition of reality for me that they once did. And it's not far off. What I'm being shown is graduation. It's not far off from, once we get out of high school, once we get out of college, once we go through certain experiences in our lives, oftentimes we're not going to go back to the same lessons or the same classes that we took during those times of our lives, because we don't need to. And that is essentially what I'm being shown to pull that back in with timelines and loops. It's like, well, we're being shown an old program. And because we're not necessarily in a place where we can differentiate the new energy from the old energy, or we're being triggered by the fear that's being injected into some of these programs, that is causing well, it's causing a lot of things. I'm hearing instability, insecurity, obviously anything that fear brings up, right? Lack of self-worth, lack of we don't feel, we fear for our safety, financial fear, all of that stuff. And what I'm being shown is if we could just let go and just say, you know what? No more. I don't care how curious I am about this particular story. I'm going to focus on something that brings me joy right now, especially when we're down. And that's something else that the guides are talking about is if you're already in a place of fear or you're already in a place of sadness or anger, um, and I'm hearing vulnerability. So it's kind of like kick them when they're down. Like we're already down. I'm not saying we are, but some people are already down. So all of a sudden, and then I'm being shown another example though. We'll get a rise in people that get really excited, and then all of a sudden something bad will happen and we'll get a whoom. So that can be sometimes controlled by the mainstream, whatever it is, the common themes or the media or movies or television or um, perpetuation of certain stories. So it could work either way. But what I'm being shown is if we already know we're having a difficult time, let's maybe not continue to feed that. Maybe we could try something different is what they're kind of inviting us to do. We will end on this note, for the symphony is going through many adjustments, and some members will leave the orchestra while others will step in to take their place. And if the person next to us that was playing an instrument that we found comfortable sitting next to decides to leave, and another person steps in, perhaps their instrument is in need of some tuning and we can assist them. Perhaps they are better or more well studied than we are, and we can then learn from them. So all of these adjustments are happening, and the more we can allow ourselves to be in flow and out of fear with this, the easier it will be for these adjustments to occur in order to I'm hearing create a new flagship, in order to create a new reality that we are hungry for, that would make us feel, I'm hearing well fed and bring us nutrients and nutrition. For many of us are starving, if you will, for certain elements to come to the table so that we can expand our smorgasbord, our buffet. I was just talking about this with my friends. And so we are being called to be open to this and not blocking ourselves by dictating what we think we need when the universe is already lining us up with more than what we think we need. For when we think or over analyze what is happening right now, it is even more challenging because we cannot necessarily understand or interpret what is happening now if we are using an old system of interpretation. And we could go into many different layers here of what that means. So we invite everyone to work with what they've got. And everyone has inside of them a miraculous sweet spot, if you will, right in the center of it all. As you go into your heart center and you dissolve the fear that has kept us bound up, that has kept us from listening to the truth of our own inner resourcefulness, that has kept us listening to a sound that is so out of harmonization with synchronization and true synchronicity, that we have been operating on a false parity, if you will. And so we are being invited to find our laughter, to find ourselves as the clown, if you will, and to recognize that we are meant to utilize our inner resource of heartfelt appreciation for all that we have experienced in this initiation into the new world, the new reality, the new expression of symphony, that our individual shape of reality, our individual snowflake patterning is offering us in the most delightful way. I'm hearing spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Okay, I know I was way off key on that one. But so it's imagination, playful, creativity, encouragement. It's working on those projects. It's taking a break from the stuff that we've been listening to that's been pulling us in a particular direction. It's allowing ourselves the freedom to move, to work with new mediums, whatever that looks like. So, in love and light, thank you so much for tuning in. Namaste.